Good afternoon, MML. Good afternoon, MML. Thank you for joining us today. It is an honor to serve our 161 members as president this year. Our webinar today will focus on one of the more important reasons why we are all members of the Maryland Municipal League: advocacy and public policy. We will look ahead to the 2026 legislative session, which is also a state election year for Maryland, and we will play into the strategy of the league. Before I hand it off to our team, I want to first recognize our legislative chair volunteer members for your hard work under the leadership of my fraternity brother, Baltimore City Council member Mark Conway, who is serving as our chair, and our vice presidents, of course, Mayor Judd Ashman of Gaithersburg and Mayor Abigail McNinch of Denton. This committee has been working hard since the summer conference, and we are grateful for their commitment. Thank you for all your work that is still to come as our legislation becomes a reality. At this time, I'd like to kick it back over to our MML CEO, Madam Teresa Coons, to get this ball rolling.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and for everyone for being with us today. I will start with a few housekeeping notes. We will be recording this, and it will be shared after the recording. If you have a question, please go ahead and drop that in the question and answer area, and we will have staff monitoring those in the question box and answering them, or we can answer it live when each presentation is complete. I wanted to kick this off with a more high-level overview of what's to come, and a realistic one for our members. As we all knew heading into this past 25 legislative session, the budget was the biggest concern, and it should be. Throw in our new uncertainty on federal funding, impacts to our income tax when the federal workforce is being reduced, and much more. It's been a tumultuous year of pivots, response, and focusing on the now rather than planning for the future and progress for our municipalities. Not only do our legislators, administrative staff feel that burnout, but our league staff does as well, as we all try to keep our head on swivel and move forward. I am extremely proud of our team for the work that we did this past session. With over 3,000 bills introduced, we managed over 200 bill positions, which was an over 100% increase from the prior year. We had two major priorities, with one becoming law and the other one only in its second year. It actually got out of the Senate committee in the same place it didn't have a hearing the year before. So we're seeing great progress in our work and our strategy. During that time, we also successfully navigated a year of historic cuts to programs, and our municipalities maintain their funding, from your HURs to income tax share, parks and rec, public safety. That is the work of this legislative and public policy team, and all of you helping us by working out of the same playbook. So thank you for all the work and feedback and support, testimony, all of it. It is encouraging to see the support we're receiving as municipalities from both our partners in the state leadership and the empathy we're receiving, because we all have shared issues on revenue expansion. The good news is, as we head into this upcoming election cycle, as our president alluded to, I hope and expect the session to be a little bit calmer. The governor, our state legislators, and your county colleagues all have elections this year. Most people will not take big issues or pass something with a large impact to residents, i.e. the voters. The rumors of a special session have now faded completely, and we're very thankful for that as well. And we hope to look at a path ahead with not too many mountains for us to climb this next year. The not so great news, and this is where we have to be realistic, it's all going to change. 2027, 2028, we are going to need to have some very serious, tough discussions, budget related in particular. There's a Band-Aid on there now, but we know that's not going to maintain. We're going to do our best to continue to build this coalition that we've begun, finding our true partners in both chambers of legislature as well as the governor's office, and continue to push ahead. And our legislative and public policy team, the league staff, we are all in. Our public policy team is being led now by our managing director, Bill George, who I am happy to hand off the webinar to now and allow him to introduce his team, the process, and what we're looking at for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Bill George. I'm the Managing Director of Advocacy and Public Policy here at MML. Before I get into a little bit about what we're going to talk today, I'd like to introduce the staff here on the Advocacy and Public Policy team. First off is Angelica Bailey-Thapari. Policy issue areas include housing and land use, government liability, public safety, and now elections. Justin Fiore, who's our budget and tax guy, also handles local government operations, annexation and incorporation, and now business regulation. Tyler Bryce, who handles climate, energy, and natural resources, along with public utilities. And Iris Abebelum is cyber, information technology, artificial intelligence, and emergency management. I should have also mentioned at the top that my portfolio includes transportation and traffic safety, personnel, as well as public buildings and public spaces. So with that, I'm going to bring up a set of slides. So pardon me as I share my screen. Okay, so that's everyone. And the final screen of the day will have everyone's name and titles as well. So we're going to move on to the MML priority process. So legislative action requests, or LARs, is the way in which we start our grassroots operation to solicit input from the membership on ideas that may become MML legislative priorities for the upcoming General Assembly session. So LAR request submission notice is sent out in the late spring, generally in late March or early April, with a submission deadline this year of May 31st. We asked for governing body approval, and there's a reason for that. It's so that there is demonstrated buy-in from the entire elected body of the municipality that's submitting the request. So although the submission deadline for the policy idea is due by the end of May, the governing body approval, we give an extra month through the beginning of July for that. That gives staff an earlier jump to get going on research and write-ups for all 19 legislative action requests that we received this year. Once that's concluded, this year the Legislative Committee met twice in July on the 24th and 31st. Typically, the first meeting is to present the ideas from MML staff's perspective on legislative history, background, what's going on in other states, kind of the nuts and bolts of the proposals. After that, we have a second meeting about a week later, at which point the LARs are debated on their merits, and votes occur on how to proceed with legislative priorities as well as strategic initiatives. So this year we ended up with one legislative priority, which you'll hear from Justin in just a little bit, detailing that, as well as one strategic initiative, and Teresa will handle the presentation on that following Justin. So once the Legislative Committee votes to recommend a priority or priorities at the second meeting, then we host this webinar to let the general membership know kind of where the Legislative Committee ended up, but also an opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit more about the policy idea. And then the final step in the process is the MML Board of Directors will take this up as an action item at their September 12th meeting for approval at that time. And at that time, it becomes official as an MML priority. And at that point, the staff can get off and running on securing bill sponsors, legislative drafting with the Friends of the Department of Legislative Services, constituent meetings, all of it. This process was updated and shifted forward in the calendar year a few years ago, and we found it to be a really, really helpful extra couple weeks that we have built into the timeline now in order to have our priority legislative action be ready for introduction before the end of the calendar year. So that's kind of the end of the process, or end of the process description. If there are any questions, drop them in the Q&A. And if none, I will pass it off to Justin to talk about the Legislative Committee's recommended legislative priority. Justin.
Thank you, Bill, and good afternoon, everyone. For years now, we've talked about how municipalities have an overwhelming dependence on property tax revenues, and the data backs this up. The chart you see here shows the average municipal revenue sources, and the story it tells is clear. In fact, if we narrow the focus to just general fund revenues and take out fee charges, property taxes account for more than half of the average municipal budget. We know that limits your flexibility to address new challenges or to see emerging opportunities in your communities. Not surprisingly, then, this year, 11 of the 19 legislative action requests we received were about revenue generation, and only one of those was related to property tax. The message from our membership was unmistakable. And so, in response, the committee consolidated these proposals under a single, powerful legislative priority for the upcoming year, which is modernizing municipal revenue structures. As Teresa highlighted earlier, this is really building on 2 years of advocacy to find alternative revenue sources. And adopting this broad policy gives MML staff strategic flexibility to pursue whatever the most promising avenues for reforms are. That could mean advocating for a specific food and beverage bill again. It could be pushing for a blue ribbon commission to study the issue or seizing another opportunity that may arise. It's even possible we see multiple bills stemming from this single priority. Ultimately, it empowers our staff to be nimble, to read the political landscape, especially in an election year, and to chart the most effective path forward towards our shared goal, which is creating a modern, resilient, flexible revenue system for Maryland's municipalities.
Please get those questions in if you have any about this topic. We are going to take a few minutes to answer those questions now. If you go back one, Bill, just to leave it there until we move forward. Thank you. For an audience of 71, I'm pretty impressed by the lack of questions because that is not the same thing that happens in our committees and boardrooms. So I appreciate this. What I will say is that we think we have an opportunity. And Justin, Bill, our team has done a great job with that. I have one question popping up. Were there any LARs around youth crime? I do not know, but Bill or Justin, there was 19 submitted total. I don't remember anything about youth crime. Bill or Justin, do you remember?
Hi, not youth crime specifically. There was an LAR submitted. I don't have the list in front of me at the moment, but there was one submitted on improving or increasing funding for youth services. So this would kind of maybe nibbles around the edges of that specific question, but it would be more kind of support services for youths who need it. And that sort of thing. So yes, there was one, and it got it received the same presentation that the others did as well.
Legislature also has taken up youth crime as a whole. It's not typically something that we bring forward or we have brought forward in the past. So we always take a look at every bill that comes in. There's 3,200 last year, as we said. We will review anything that has direct relationship to municipalities and make sure we get that information out. John has asked, how will membership be included in specific proposals for revenue? Yes, I understand modernization. So our legislative committee really will support us on that. Those members, we have about 25 total. We have a rep from every staff department. We have representatives from most chapters who submitted a name. We have Baltimore City leading it. And we also have our board of directors who will be heavily involved in that. But anytime you have questions about where we end up on the proposals, please just reach out. Our team is willing to share that, no problem. And also reach out to your chapter leadership or your staff department leadership because they all have a voice in that as well. Wayne, thank you for the question about MACA. We actually have been talking to them and they actually took our priority last year's as their own, as did Baltimore City on the food and beverage fee. We don't see that going away. They particularly have obviously the education funding they're looking at. So they are very excited about finding new ways to modernize revenues. We do have a meeting with their leadership 2 weeks from now from between our two teams, and we both go through our priorities talk about where we are and how do we work together. I remember my first meeting with Michael Sanderson when I was given this role that 95% of the time we agree. And that still continues. 95% of the time, Mako and MML, we are a stronger team together. We typically cover for each other, our testimony at the table. But I'm pretty excited that we have a meeting coming up. We'll discuss where we are and we'll see where they end up being as well on their priorities.
Yeah, and Teresa, if I could just add real quick, but we frame this as modernizing municipal revenue structures for our end of the priorities, but these conversations are usually a little bit broader about local revenue structures. So whether that's A&A, they were included in the bill, or food and beverage, or a work group, it would likely be both. That's historically where we've had success is showing up because they have the same sort of structure concerns we do.
And here's one from Mayor Becker. Will this path possibly be able to help municipalities address the shall tax issue the municipality of Westminster faces located in Carroll County, for example? I will say that our work group idea is probably the most likely piece of pasta that will hit the wall and stick. And we actually have met with the Senate president early this year. We met in June, and that was a great meeting where he gave us the title of what we should be looking for. If that work group goes forward, and I see that as a bill that moves out no matter what we put in, that will be looked at. We will not prescribe it that way, but we will certainly talk about tax differential, may versus shall. It is continuously a conversation that Justin in particular has often and throughout the year and during the legislative process. Justin, anything else you'd like to add on to that?
I'll just mention that that's a very natural place to talk about this because politically, one of the challenges we run into is what happens to county budgets if they have to, shift things and provide a tax differential. This seems like a natural place to both make them whole elsewhere and again use that word modernize to say no, it needs to be a shall, and then we're going to find a way to work it out. But this provides that holistic approach to make multiple things happen, I believe.
With that, looks like that was the last question on revenue. So we'll move forward to strategic initiatives. And it's timely given the questions that we had today about Mako. So a strategic initiative, what is this versus a legislative priority? Our legislative priorities are approved by the board of directors. Strategic initiative is adopted by the legislative committee. Beyond the priority of modernizing our revenues, the committee has adopted a strategic initiative, removing barriers to municipal incorporation. So as I said, initiatives do not require a board vote. They also don't require MML staff to have a bill drafted and search for sponsors. Rather, we're really here to help guide that policy and provide testimony as we have already over the last few years on this issue itself. So I can't really interact with you in the webinar format, but did you know that it's been over 70 years since we've had a new incorporated community? 70 years. 5 state-created special taxing districts were created in Montgomery County that then were allowed to become full municipalities, but no community without an existing quasi-municipal structure has actually successfully gone from petition to referendum since the state adopted this new process in 1954. It was much different back then when the General Assembly actually gave the authority to create those new municipalities and install a local system. There was no shared local income tax. There was no hotel tax. Lawmakers in the 50s never even envisioned a system where counties would have a direct financial incentive to block communities from incorporating. Yet that is exactly what has continued to happen for 70 years. This is a process that gives the counties an implicit veto over the self-determination of their own residents. And we're seeing this play out right now. The community of Edgewood in Hartford County is working to restart its incorporation effort. They are one of several who have experienced the county veto in the past and are working with their state legislators to pass legislation to remove that obstacle. Justin has testified on behalf of MML for the last several years on these efforts, but adopting this as a strategic initiative really allows our staff to put more time and weight into finding the solution. And this is the question that we asked our committee. As existing municipalities, Why should you care? The answer is simple. A stronger league benefits every single one of us because there is power in numbers. How many of you are part of legit? 150 out of 157. When that risk pool grows, what happens? Your costs go down. And that's just one example. Right now, municipal residents make up a quarter of the state's population. And as that continues to grow, and it does because municipalities are where we're seeing the most population growth in the state, so does that voice that we have in Annapolis. There are 2 counties and dozens of House seats in Maryland that represent 0 municipalities. And in fact, 2 of the most powerful committees where our bills continue to go on revenues are represented by someone who does not have a single municipality in their district or their county. It makes education different for us when we go to those committee chairs and to those committees because they need to learn from us why they should care about municipalities. When MML advocates on your behalf for, let's say, a new revenue source, it's those legislators who are inherently more challenging. There's also less likely to understand your day-to-day operations and the services you provide. Growing our ranks means we've also grown our influence. It means creating new partners for shared services and regional economic development. And by fixing an outdated law, we're not just helping future municipalities, we are investing in a stronger, more influential future for ourselves. Last month, I was invited along with the president-elect, Mayor of Bladensburg, Takesha James, Justin, and our team to a community meeting of Edgewood. It was powerful. We sat there and we answered questions about what municipalities can and can't do, what progress looks like, and how to self-determine what you'd like. I think that this is going to be a powerful year for us in terms of voicing the strength of what municipalities are in our communities. It only adds to what we're trying to do, and it's also about fairness. I like to ask President Knock if you'd like to add any comments to this portion of the strategic initiative.
Sure. So the one thing that I really want to push is that um, one of the things that every member of our community values is representation. There was a time in Pocomoke City where we had all of our council seats were at large. And because they were at large, it was hard for minorities to be represented in the process. And that's the same thing that we're going through in some of our neighboring communities where they are not getting adequate representation from people that look like, that sound like, that work like, or that even play like them. So just as I told them in the Baltimore Sun, if it wasn't for representation, if it wasn't for someone saying, hey, we need everyone to have a seat at the table, I wouldn't be where I am today. And many of you wouldn't be where you are today. So we want to give our neighbors that same opportunity. Places like Edgewood, okay, there we go. Places like Edgewood, places like Waldorf, and even places here down here on the Eastern Shore that benefit off of towns like Pocomoke. We all have communities in our area that benefit off of the municipality, and we want them to be able to make their own decisions, just as we are able to make our own decisions. This is a worthy cause. This is a worthy fight. And hey, it might not be for us, but we're fighting for the future. Remember, we're going back to the future and we're going to take everyone with us.
Well, thank you, President Knock. That was wonderful. I'm happy to answer any questions on this one. Again, it's not our main priority, but it is something that we're going to take a little bit more of a focus on. We do believe this is an opportunity, not just for these communities, but for all of us. Edgewood's a good example, but I believe Justin has a running list of maybe 20 different communities we've heard from in just my 3 years with the league. This is something that we're getting asked about quite often. We want to make sure that we are answering that call. Let's see. What ideas have been discussed on how to reach out to unincorporated areas to educate them on the subject and begin a discussion of the pros and cons of incorporation? Urbana is a great example, Wayne. That's something that the board's going to have to discuss. It's not something that's in our current strategic plan. We're hoping that if we see this bill move forward, and I'll give a lot of credit to Justin, he did some research on the rest of the country. In some places, it's just a ballot referendum. I was speaking with Michigan State League Director last week. He said, hey, if more than 25% in a community decide they want that and vote for it, they become a they can become incorporated. Colorado is doing it often. They're also doing it that similar way. Louisiana allows the governor to do it. I think there's different ways that we can move forward. We are going to have to figure out what that path is before we can educate. I love the idea of educating. I know, Todd, we talked about going to community colleges and really educating the next generation. This is a great example of what we could do. I think using MML's new C3 as an education tool and explaining what municipalities do could be great. I will share with this group, and it's nothing that's not been said. We are only one of 4 states in the country that don't operate where the municipalities are the stronger of the two between counties and municipalities. And I don't think we're trying to take counties out. We're trying to find that equalizer. And this is a great opportunity to allow communities to have a voice. But we can certainly think about education. I love the idea, Wayne. Okay, well, with that, thank you all for joining us. We got up to over 80 today, so we appreciate that. We will see you all in the near future. Our excellence in, oh, Bill, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, this ties in with what you were going to say.
So our board has their retreat convening in September. They will be taking this up as their sole action item for today. Then we are bill sponsor shopping, which we frankly already began at Mako. Our team was down there along with the president, our past president, as well as our president-elect. And several of you were there as well, like Mayor Morris. So thank you all for joining us. We had some great meetings with legislators. We are working on draft legislation, different ideas that we're moving forward with. We anticipate Speaker Jones and the President of the Senate meetings in the next month. So we're ready to move forward as soon as the board adopts a priority. And then we have our Excellence in Leadership Conference. I'm really excited about the numbers. We have 252 people who registered for Early Bird. That's beyond what we imagined for the fall conference. We have over 70 cities coming, so we have another month of registration still, and we are opening it up to our friends at the borders of West Virginia and Pennsylvania to join some regional discussion as well. So we're really looking forward to seeing you all at the Excellence in Leadership Conference, and there will be a workshop on this. Our opening day reception is January 14th this year. Legislature actually convenes a little bit later. And a nice reminder of 2026 is also our 90th anniversary of the league. So you'll see some special events built around that. And Advocacy Day, I believe, is March 4th, but that's just my memory from the contract. That may be wrong. So please wait till the real dates come out. But we have a full calendar coming up. Also, please don't forget we have our State of the Municipality on December 4th of this year. And this year's study is actually looking at all the services you provide in each of your municipalities. It is a great way to quantify property taxes and other revenue structures and also show why our municipalities need to expand those revenues. This independent data we've done 3 years now straight with Bill leading that has been fantastic for testimony. This year, University of Baltimore's professional research team is managing it, so you probably have heard from them, especially our city managers. So thank you for working with them. But that is the next steps. Can't wait to see all of you in the near future. If not at the retreat, I see some of our board members on here. We will see you at fall conference or on webinars. Please reach out with any questions. Once we have actual bill numbers and drafted, you will get that. And with that, have a great afternoon and get some of your time back. Take care, everybody. Thank you.